Welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. My name is Daniel Dopp. Alongside Field Yates and Stephania Bell, we are back for another day. It is Tuesday, July 29th. Yesterday, we did a mock draft. We came back with a vengeance. In case this is your first time listening to the show this week, we did a mock draft on Monday. Go back and check that out. It was a very fun show. But guys, I'm really pumped to be able to be here with both of you again today. We're going into tiers this week.
We are. So we start with the quarterback tier today. We'll do every position after that throughout the week. But I want to say congratulations, not to Stephania, because there was no doubt in my mind, but to Daniel for not getting fired after one show yesterday.
That's right. I was just going to say they let us back on the air today.
Back
so
for day two.
Good sign.
So, shout out to Daniel. Shout out to me for surviving a show. Stephania's like, guys,
shout
I've
out
been
to
doing
your
this
hair.
for 14 years. Oh, thank you.
I know
okay.
you have
we
feelings
can talk about it every
but
day until the season's over. I'm not going to complain.
Fair.
That's for sure. But Daniel's got his hair literally let down.
You want to know why? I'll tell you why, Field. I know yesterday you were a little bit bummed because you were like, they cut it a little shorter than what I wanted. And this is one of the things about sports. You know this. It's sometimes you need to play with someone better than you so you can play up to your competition, right?
Damn it.
I wanted to give your hair something to be like, that's what I aspire to be.
Damn it. You're right.
So now your hair gets to play up to the competition. It's going to grow out even faster. It already looks full and beautiful, my friend.
I did overhear Field in the makeup room say he's thinking about growing a beard. So,
No, Field!
So aspirations.
Too far!
I'm coming for Daniel's corner.
That's too far. Pretty soon he's going to be wearing T-shirts and jeans to work. I'll tell you
Let's
what.
not get crazy, Daniel. Jeez.
Do you own a T-shirt?
I have a couple.
Yeah, I'm sure. Roback makes a few T-shirts.
I thought you were going to say congratulations.
Sleeveless T-shirts, yeah.
To Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. He is a girl dad.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, very cool.
Joining the girl dads at the table. I figured you would appreciate that.
Good thing I moved him up my rankings yesterday.
That's right.
We have our quarterback tiers in just a bit. But we have some housekeeping to get to before, and I promise we're like 90 seconds away from talking about the quarterback tiers. But, Daniel, we have to give the people some information, correct?
Yeah, we got some live shows.
Okay, tell me
Going
more.
back to where we have done this before, New York City. We got tickets going fast. Come see us live Thursday, August 7th at the Gramercy Theater in New York City. Go to fantasyfocuslive.com in order to get tickets. Just like every other live show that we have, you get swag, you get food, you get drinks. There's a meet and greet afterwards. Yeah, we get to hang out, ask questions. So it's always a ton of fun. Go grab tickets. They are going quickly. But if you're not in the New York City area and you're in the Philadelphia area,
nice.
August 14th, we're going to be at Union Transfer. Go check us out there as well, which is very cool. Same thing. Go to FocusLivePhilly.com. That is Focus.
I think it's
FantasyFocusLivePhilly.com. You can grab tickets. Same exact thing. Food, drinks, swag, meet and greet, all that good stuff. So make sure you check us out at both of those places. It's going to be a ton of fun. These live shows are always awesome. Field G.
I'm raising my hand to not ask a question, but to instead state something that I believe is a fact.
Okay.
I think this is a steal of a deal. $35. Like, I think in New York, you can buy one bottle of water and half of a bagel. No cream cheese, though.
For $35.
$35.
Yeah.
So the fact that you get all of this stuff, swag included, plus the intangible value of being in the presence of Stephania Bell, to me, that's more like a $3,500 value. You're getting it for $35. 1% of retail value.
I think you should even consider going to both shows. Because no two shows are alike.
You're right.
That's right. Different content each week. And this is the time of year when things change on the dime. So why not? Follow us around. Come to New York. Come to Philly.
Yep. Liz Loza and Mike Clay will be at both of those shows, which is going to be a ton of fun. By the way, Mike Clay getting a homecoming show in Philadelphia. How fun is that going to be?
He's going to be insufferable because he's going to talk about the World Championship Philadelphia Eagles, and he's going to go on and on and on. And we're going to remind him in front of the Philly crowd that he was not as high on Saquon as some of us.
Wow.
Take that, Mike Clay.
Mike's sitting there on vacation right now, sipping a Mai Tai at 10:12. It's like, what's...
He's not listening. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he might be doing exactly what you're saying, but he's not listening to the podcast right now.
No Mai Tai.
Savvy bee or a margarita. I think those are the only two things.
That's what he drinks?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, well, you know where you can get a Savvy bee or a nice margarita, Stefania?
Where?
Down in the Bahamas.
Bahamas, I knew it.
Baha Mar, the ESPN Fantasy Football Ultimate Draft Weekend is back for year 2 from August 21st through the 24th in the Bahamas. Enjoy an oceanfront stay at the luxurious Baha Mar Resort and exclusive events like our one-of-a-kind beach combine. You get to mingle with celebrity guests and NFL players throughout the weekend like Todd Gurley, Golden Tate, Kyle Rudolph, and so much more. Then get insights from your favorite ESPN fantasy football experts. Even Mike Clay will be there before drafting your squad at our epic live draft party. The draft party was so much fun last year. We did the boards. We were helping people be able to draft, being able to do that. You don't have to have a full league. I just want to say this. You don't need to bring your full league down. You can come by yourself. We will put you in a league with a bunch of other people and just make the experience awesome for you. So don't feel like if you can't get all other 9 league mates to come with you, doesn't mean you can't come hang out with us at Baha Mar.
Come by yourself.
That's
totally.
right.
We actually
Absolutely.
had quite a few of those last year. People that were, I don't know, they were like, you guys ever go to a ski resort and you ride in the singles line, right?
Uh-huh.
Your group breaks up and you move really fast because you go in the singles line. You get paired up with another group that fits the 4 or 6 person share.
Single rider.
Single
Yeah,
rider.
that's right.
Move to the front of the lane. Lots of fun.
Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun. A lot of fun live show stuff coming up.
Let's do
Go
it.
check all of that out in case you're interested in hanging out with us live. But right now, we're going to dive into our quarterback tiers for 2025.
Let's do it, baby.
Phil, let's talk about this really quickly. Obviously, we do rankings at ESPN. We always talk about that. But one of the things that we harp on is that rankings are a tool, but maybe tiers is a better way to look at breaking down positions.
Yeah, because I think of it almost like if you were a lawyer who was hired to argue for Lamar Jackson as the best quarterback in fantasy football, you could do so this year. You could also find a lawyer that would make the case for Jayden Daniels or Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, maybe even Joe Burrow, perhaps somebody else outside of those 5 quarterbacks. But tiers reflect players that we think have similar level value that I'm not agonizing too much over the order of. I also want to make something very clear, at least this is philosophically how I go about making my player rankings each year, is the way that these players are ranked in the preseason is essentially who is the likeliest player to finish number 1 overall at his respective position.
Okay.
There are players who I do think will have solid, steady floors and maybe a decent ceiling, but not the same level of ceiling. That'll be reflected more as we get a little bit later into our tiers for the quarterbacks today.
Yep.
And maybe we're talking about some veterans that don't run, but they've got a handful of big games in them versus wild card players that perhaps we've never seen on an NFL field before, but have some unique traits that might give them a path, even if it's a very remote path, to a top 1 or maybe more likely a top 5 or 10 season. So when you're hearing me rank a player 19th, it means I think this is the 19th most likely quarterback to finish number 1 overall.
Okay. So then we're going to go in. Field and I both have a list of tiers having done our rankings. We're going to see how similar and how different we are from each other. Field, do you want to unveil your tier 1? This would be like S tier, like superstar tier. These are the number 1 quarterbacks in the game.
Yeah, I've got 5 quarterbacks in tier 1. You can make a case that it's almost like 4.5. And we'll describe why in just a minute here. But there are 5 quarterbacks that I think have a real shot to finish as QB1 overall. If any of them do so, it won't be a surprise to me. Here we go. In this order: Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. In the case of the first 4, you're talking about quarterbacks that are elite dual threat players, right? Lamar Jackson is, I think, the greatest rushing quarterback in NFL history.
Yep.
Jayden Daniels has a chance, I think, to get into that territory of runner. He wasn't quite at Lamar's level last year, but not too far behind. Jalen Hurts is the best bet to run for 12 touchdowns in a season. Maybe not named Derrick Henry in the entire league,
Seriously.
especially with the tush push remaining around.
Yep.
Sneaky important fantasy thing during the offseason was the tush push being allowed for at least 1 more year. If the tush push doesn't exist, Jalen Hurts would still run for touchdowns, but he probably runs for fewer touchdowns, and Saquon Barkley probably runs for more touchdowns.
Agreed.
Josh Allen, as we know, he is the NFL's reigning MVP. He has been the highest scoring quarterback in fantasy 2 out of the past 3 years. We've seen his rushing dip each of the past 3 seasons in terms of total of carries, but he's Josh Allen, right? I mean, all of these guys, in the case of Lamar, Jayden, and Josh, I think a reasonable expectation is close to 4,000 passing yards. Jalen, coming off of a season just under 3,000 passing yards, he could reach 4,000 as well. But to me, those 4 guys, because of their dual threat ability, all have a clear-cut case to be quarterback 1. Joe Burrow's in a different category because he's not going to run as much.
Yeah.
But
he's the same but different.
He's just elite, right? His last 3 healthy seasons, remember just 2 years ago, he missed 7 games because of injury. But the last 3 healthy seasons, Joe has thrown for at least 4,475 passing yards and at least 34 passing touchdowns. He, to me, should be viewed as the NFL's favorite to be both the passing yardage leader and passing touchdown leader. Defense is not going to be improved enough, in my opinion, in Cincinnati, that they're going to start playing 21-17 games. They're still going to need to win games, as my shoes are squeaking and bothering Stephania there, like 31-29 type games. But yes, Joe Burrow, to me, belongs in this tier, but he has a different pathway than the other 4.
Yeah.
Anybody stand out that you guys like, I fundamentally disagree?
It's funny. Well, I think yesterday I said that Joe Burrow's on the edge for me because it's really hard to get past the lack of mobility. And it's not that he's not mobile, actually. I would say he is very mobile. Like he's mobile within the pocket and remarkably so. If you watched him in his early years when he was running for his life often behind zero protection, that's what made him so special. It's also what made him get hurt. He ended up getting tackled. That's how he tore his ACL, MCL. Every year, Joe Burrow gives us a little bit of a heart attack because every year in training camp, there's something. It was the appendix. It was the calf. And you never know how is he going to be during the season. But pretty remarkably, he's put together a string, 3 of those seasons where he's played every single game or just about every single game. So there's a little concern with the injury history that there could be something there that could crop up. But as you mentioned, he's such a prolific passer, 658 pass attempts, which is 68 more than any other quarterback. Yeah. So even if it's not always the deep threat, even if he's not giving you yardage with his feet, if you're throwing the ball that much, and do we really have any reason to think that will change?
Well, they have been if you look at, it's called neutral pass rate, which is basically when it's not like 3rd and 12 when you expect a team to pass, or 2nd and 1 when you expect a team to run. The Bengals have the pass-heaviest offense in the NFL. Like they have an aggressive pass attack, partly because they have a thin
running back.
And they have a thin backfield, as we know. It's Chase Brown and then some question marks beyond that. But Joe, I think, belongs in this tier. Let me throw something your way, Daniel.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the conceit of the tiers is that like these guys are all pretty closely ranked. I have Josh Allen 4th. Is that crazy? Not crazy? Sort of crazy?
Here's
Where do
the
you land on that one?
It's a tier. That's lower than where I would have him. I would have him 2nd.
Okay.
And
so
that's just in part because over the last 5 seasons, he's either finished as QB1 or QB2.
Yeah.
He has such an elite rushing floor. He's 2nd in the NFL over the last 3 years in rushing touchdowns. He's not going to get Jalen Hurts level like rushing volume at the goal line, but he certainly has the ability to get in there. And by the way, last year, even with James Cook basically leading the NFL in touchdowns, Josh Allen still had double-digit rushing touchdowns.
I also think, if you look at last year, Josh Allen changed his running a little bit because he hurt himself.
Yeah.
There was that dive that he made. It was either into the end zone or near the end zone, and he ended up hurting his arm. And you could tell that it bothered him sometimes, and he'd be shaking it sometimes. It didn't stop him. Josh Allen is incredibly durable and plays through things that would bother most people. But it did change how aggressive he was with running. And so I think if that's not there, you actually are going to see an increase. He's not afraid to run at the goal line. Like I actually think his goal line rushing could be stronger this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where I'm not sure. And again, we're nitpicking here, so I'm not going to passionately say you're wrong, Stephania. My curiosity is, as he gets a little older, and I know that Josh is far from old, right? But like he is, this is not rookie Josh Allen anymore. He's on his 3rd contract now, right? So he's probably year 7 or 8 now for Josh Allen. Sean McDermott's talked about this plenty in the past. Like you got to be smart with Josh, and because they have this incredible offensive line that goes 6 deep, and they have this running back in James Cook that if they get this contract sealed up, they certainly trust to do the dirty work at the goal line. That the way that Josh Allen can go from QB2 to QB4 is if the goal line rushing attempts or the overall rushing attempts drop by like 8 or 10%. Right, I'm not talking about Josh Allen going from 100 carries to 50 carries.
Right.
We have seen the carries go down from 2022 to 2023 to 2024. Nitpicking here, I just think Jayden Daniels, supernova talent, going to get better in year 2, better weapons around him once Terry McLaurin gets locked in.
And then, crossed.
Jalen Hurts just feels like, and some of the discourse around Jalen Hurts is just flat out silly in the real world right now, but he's just going to kind of do it.
Yeah.
Like, assuming he stays healthy, is Jalen Hurts going to rush for any fewer than 10 rushing touchdowns next year? They're going to get to the goal line, and they're going to run the tush push.
He has had at least 10 touchdowns in 4 straight seasons. I don't see any reason with them not changing the tush push why that would change now.
Yeah.
I think when I look at this, my tier is very similar to yours. We have the exact same 5 players field. My tier is Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jayden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and then Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was almost in like a tier 1A or 1B, I guess, because he's the only non-rushing elite premium quarterback. But I will say this. I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to put Jayden Daniels above Jalen Hurts. do I really, and again, that we're nitpicking here, right? The idea of a rookie that just had the most rushing yards ever by a rookie. If you said, which one of these guys, Jalen Hurts or Jayden Daniels, has a better chance to throw for 4,000 yards this year?
Jayden.
It's Jayden Daniels.
Yep.
Which one has a better chance to throw 30 to 35 touchdowns?
Jayden again.
Okay. Which one has a better chance for double-digit rushing touchdowts? That's Jalen Hurts.
For sure.
Okay.
Yes, right.
So then which one is going to run for 800 or more rushing yards? I think that's more likely Jayden Daniels than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is going to have plenty of reasons for upside. But for me, that second-year potential ascent, that sophomore season of him being able to get better, I think puts him there.
I had him second. You had him, you said third for Jayden. So again, we're splitting hairs here. One thing I guess we should have probably emphasized a little more is Lamar, QB1 for all three of us.
What do you have to say? Lamar Jackson threw for over 4,000 yards, 41 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions. Correct. That sounds like an Aaron Rodgers line.
Yeah.
And then he also added, almost 900 yards on the ground?
Correct. He's the only guy in this list that we have talked about who has a really strong chance every year to lead the NFL in passing touchdowns.
Yep.
And lead all quarterbacks in rushing yards. So Lamar had, you're going to hear me reference this stat a decent amount throughout the show. He had 14 games last year with 20 or more fantasy points. 14 with 20 or more.
That's incredible.
So you're chasing upside. Lamar Jackson has as much upside as any quarterback, and perhaps any player not named Jamar Chase and Bijan Robinson in the league.
Good for you, baby. Good for you. All right, I'm going to ask this question, then we're going to move on to the next tier. Given what you just said, do you feel like you need to draft one of these 5 quarterbacks given how good their ceiling is? Or in fantasy drafts, do you feel like the position is deep enough that if they fall, sure, I won't say no to these guys, but I don't feel like I need to grab one?
Yeah, these are round 3 to 4 targets for me. Rounds 3 and rounds 4 target. That's where they're going in terms of ADP. I mentioned this during our mock yesterday. One of the things I have found myself really enjoying is being at the back end of this tier of quarterbacks because it is seen differently by each person, which of these 5 is the best. And if you see, and again, this is a totally defensible pick. If Josh Allen is QB1 and you get Lamar Jackson 11 picks later, that's an incredible value,
that's a
right?
Total win.
Joe Burrow actually dropped a decent amount in the mock yesterday. So there are other quarterbacks that I like, but if you're in favor of paying the premium here, I think it's justifiable because I have a hard time, barring health, which is a caveat we'll use a million times this year, seeing these guys not perform at a very high level.
Agreed. All right, then let's talk the A tier. So that's the S tier, the A tier of the quarterbacks field. You and I also, I think, see it pretty similarly here.
Oh, here we go. We didn't even trade notes before this, but here is my A tier / tier 2 quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, Brock Purdy, Dad Brock Purdy.
That's right.
Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, and Dak Prescott.
Ooh.
And I think where these guys are different from the next tier is, and we'll get into the next tier in just a little bit, is that there is established upside that we saw either last year or prior seasons.
Correct.
With these players.
Yep.
And there are reasons to believe that upside is repeatable this year. So we can go through them. Like Baker and Bo Nix were actually 2 of my favorite targets in the mock draft project because what we're seeing, and this is why tiers matter to me, is while I have Joe Burrow 5th and Baker Mayfield 6th, which would suggest they're close in value, they're going way far apart in some of our mock drafts.
Yeah.
On top of that, there are people that feel very strongly about Patrick Mahomes. We'll talk about him in just a moment. So there are times where I was getting Baker Mayfield as quarterback 8 or quarterback 9, going in like rounds 9 or 10. Love the value here. He had 10 games with 20 or more fantasy points last year. They're loaded, is Tampa. They are loaded with pass catchers. And despite the fact that they had a great rushing attack last year, Baker Mayfield still put up monster numbers. Probably the 2 biggest concerns with Baker are as follows. 1, he's only had 1 monster season where the guys ahead of him and some of the guys behind him have had multiple monster seasons. 2, Tampa Bay ain't going to be that bad on defense again this year. They played so many shootout games. They had no pass rush and they had no cover corners last year. Both of those areas on paper look better this year. That might reduce the upside a little bit, but Baker's a stud. Just a touch of rushing upside, but a very fantasy-friendly offense.
I will just say this. You talked about the gap. Joe Burrow, ADP right now is 36.1.
Okay, so round 4. Yeah.
Baker Mayfield's ADP is 64.9.
Okay, so you're talking about a 3 I said 8
difference.
or 9, so that's ADP. So they're probably,
and that can change too as we get deeper into draft season as well.
I was overestimating how far he had.
I guess I'm curious. The only thing that gives me pause, and it's only slight pause here, because I'm with you on Baker Mayfield. I think yesterday on the show you said Baker had 10 games of 20 or more fantasy points. Is that right?
10 or more. Yeah, 10 with 20 or more. Excuse me. Yeah.
Which is legit. I mean, if you know that you can lock up 10, 20-point games from a guy that you're drafting after those first 5 elite guys, I think that's a really high floor for you to be able to have. Mike Evans is old. Can we just say it?
He is, but I'm not worried about that.
You're not worried about that?
They have so much depth. It's insane.
Okay, and you're not worried about Chris Godwin and what's going to happen there?
Well, I think those things can be mutually exclusive, right? Like Chris Godwin might not be ready to begin the season, but I still think they have a really talented wide receiver room.
I agree with you. I guess it's just the idea that my silly brain is like, boy, they got a guy who eventually is going to, and we watched him, unfortunately, he got hurt, banged up last year, and Mike Evans.
He did without him last year, though.
And so if we do Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's hurt, then they, drafted a rookie that they're going to have to spin up and get ready in this offense. They no longer have Liam Cohen, who was the offensive coordinator now in Jacksonville. These are reasons why, rather than having him in that higher tier, to me, he falls in this A tier for me as well. I don't mean that as a negative. It's just the reasons why he's not higher for me on that list.
I will say in Baker's defense, what he did last year with a rotation of receivers that we could not name, from one Sunday to the next was pretty remarkable. Like he fairly consistent in terms of throwing. Baker loves to sling it. Like I think that even to your point, defense is better. I don't see that changing. It's like I don't see him getting conservative all of a sudden. So volume wise, I don't know that it changes that much. I feel like this group, it's funny because although, I don't rank on the site, I have these tiers for myself, and I kind of ended up in the same spot as you guys in many places. I probably have Dak overall. When you look at our rankings, I would have Dak slightly higher to make it into this tier. I think by some of our rankings, people have him lower. They don't trust him. They also don't see the rushing side of him as much anymore because ever since his ankle surgery, he really hasn't run as much. But I think that is going to be a prolific passing offense this year. And Dak had the hamstring tear last year, so that's people's last memory, lost half a season. He is strong. He is in great shape. And I think with the receiver core that he has, we're going to see a lot more passing volume increase from Dak.
Yep, Daniel and I both had him in this tier, so we're all aligned here. An elite wide receiver duo, 30 or more passing touchdowns for Dak, and 4,449 to be specific, or more passing yards in each of his last 3 healthy seasons. So obviously I'm tossing away last year when he hardly played. I'll just rip through these, and you guys can tell me what's interesting for these names here in Tier 2. Bo Nix, who had 7 games with 20 or more fantasy points as a rookie last year.
Yes.
He had 92 carries. That's a good number right there. Now, I think that Sean Payton wants his quarterbacks to operate from the pocket. That 92 number might drop a little bit. But he's a threat with his legs on scrambles. That matters to me. 33 total touchdowns last year, and just this year 2 bump.
Can I say, because I'm with you, we have him both.
No, this is what you should say.
The idea is, from me, I looked at him, it's from weeks 5 to 18. I mean, you take away that first month of the season where he's getting acclimated, he ended up being quarterback 5 from weeks 5 to 18.
Yep.
And so I'm pumped to see what he can be.
The shocker of last year was Bo Nix.
Yeah,
he was great. Brock Purdy, 7 games with 20 or more fantasy points. Yep. Obviously a much reshaped offense. However, the 2 most important players, in my opinion, to that offense's success,
George Kittle
and Christian McCaffrey. Yep. Both back, both healthy right now. We'll talk a lot about Christian McCaffrey.
Yes, we will.
You know why? Because I just put up a tweet last night just to test I mean, I wasn't testing the waters, but it turned out I tested the waters. People are fired up about Christian McCaffrey after last season. I have some thoughts. We'll dive into it on the running back tiers tomorrow.
Yeah, we will.
Most interesting player in this tier is Patrick Mahomes. And let's just not beat around the bush here, right? He's the best player on the planet. He is a 3-time Super Bowl champion, NFL MVP, yada, yada, yada. Once, for a while, an elite fantasy quarterback. Part of what we're doing here is obviously projecting forward, but we're using the past to project forward. Over the past 2 seasons, Patrick Mahomes has played a lot of football. In each of those 2 regular seasons, how many 20 or more fantasy points did he have? Fantasy point games did he have?
In each of the last 2 seasons?
It's the same number in 2023 and 2024.
I would guess like 3?
4.
Yeah, I was going to say in both seasons combined, I was going to say 5.
So why, what happened that we saw that from those 2 seasons? And I'm with you, Field, that now all of a sudden we're like, you know what, though? I'm going to buy it this year.
Well, so I think let's be honest.
Because it's Patrick Mahomes.
Correct. You're a little afraid. Of course, he has it in him to go nuclear. He's, again, the best player on the planet. The offensive line is reconstructed and looks promising on paper, even though the loss of Joe Thuney is massive. But to me, I think the most obvious reason is that it looks like his best receiving core in a while.
Yes, it does.
We feel good about Xavier Worthy. We talked about Rashee Rice. Let's just say, when he's on the field, a trio of Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, healthy Hollywood Brown, plus Jalen Royals, their third-round pick,
and
feels a whole lot
Travis
better.
Kelce as a safety blanket there.
A whole lot better.
They had no games last year where all of them were on the field at the same time because Hollywood Brown got hurt in preseason week 1.
Yep.
So they brought him in on a 1-year deal for last year to have that receiving core, and they were like, okay, we've got it. And then they didn't. So there was some plug and play around that position. I agree with you. I think the receiving core is going to be better than it's been in a while. That's going to be more consistent. They're going to have practice together. I think that changes things. Travis Kelce's still going to be his safety blanket, his outlet, but I think that Travis Kelce's star, is not as shiny as it was back in the early fantasy days.
It is on Instagram.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you guys see
Let
that?
me be clear.
In pop culture,
his fantasy star, like his non-football star.
Is this the
shines
photo
brightly.
that you were talking about with?
Dude, so he hard launched with Taylor Swift on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I saw, on Instagram they have the likes, they have the comments, and they have the shares.
Right.
Like a day after it went live, it had like 500,000 shares.
That's crazy.
Respect.
That's crazy.
Dude, like that's got to be.
He's living not only his best life, but the best life for a lot.
Yeah,
of
for a lot of he's living a lot of people's best lives.
But
fair.
my point being, you can't. Number one, we've seen Patrick Mahomes do it before. You can't count him out. I agree with you about the best receiving core we've seen in a while. The run game might be a little more suspect. And they're going to have to change some things up. How many games did they win last year by a hair? I think they're going to be there. I think they know they can't do that again.
Right. They're talking.
The answer is too many.
I actually
games.
think that the thing is that, I think last year they kind of played offense how they were able to because the defense was so good.
Yeah. Right.
Not that they didn't play anybody last year. They did play formidable opponents. But I think all 6 of their division games this year are credible challenges. The Chargers and Broncos are going to be good. The Raiders should be much improved. They just need to score more because it's just going to be hard to grind it. They were grinding out games last year.
Their offense was, they lost Rashee Rice early in the season. They lost Hollywood Brown at the beginning of the season.
Before the season.
Isaiah Pacheco,
right?
Was out. They didn't have the running game that they were supposed to have. Obviously, you saw Travis Kelce, he was still out there. And at the end of the season, he looked more like vintage Travis Kelce. But in the middle of the season, he was having some.
I expect that from Travis Kelce, by the way, for as long as he continues to play.
Yes, agreed.
That they'll rely on him when they need him to be big.
Yep.
And if that means that the months of September and October are pedestrian, so be it, because he's accomplished everything he needs to accomplish to cement his legacy. The Chiefs are focused on getting a 4th ring. The only player I didn't mention from there is Kyler Murray. I was
just going to bring him up.
He's just Jekyll and Hyde, right? He had 7 games last year with 20 or more fantasy points. The upside, it's really good.
Yep.
But he had more games last year in which he had 1 or 0 touchdowns than 2 or more touchdowns.
So in order for Kyler Murray
player
to look like Kyler Murray, we need more Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. connections.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think we need a healthier. Remember there was a time where what we're talking about with Jayden Daniels, we were thinking about for Kyler, the kind of guy who could lead the league or come close to 4,000 passing yards and 30 passing touchdowns and 8 rushing touchdowns plus 750 yards. Feels like we're not there right now with Kyler. I think he has it within him, but there's some risk here because I think the jury is out as to what level of real-life quarterback he still is. He's a fascinating decision for the team to make. It's probably going to be 2 years from now because the ceiling for this roster will be dictated by what they get out of Kyler Murray.
Kyler's, and you said this, it's so tough because I think he's a great runner, but I don't think he's an elite runner. He's not like the rest of the guys, right? And he's still never thrown 4,000 yards in a season.
Wow.
So that's part of why, he's in this tier rather than, in spite of all the intangibles that he has, he's down here. From this tier, Field, knowing the ADP is kind of all over the place because you get a little bit deeper. Do you guys have a quarterback in this A tier that you prefer targeting or that you like more than any of the rest of them?
I like them all.
Well,
because the
they're your children.
Remember, kind of like the sweet spot, right? Is that what's Dak's ADP right now? Do you have it pulled up?
I do have it pulled up. Dak's ADP right now is crazy low. Okay. It is 118.
All right, so that's the back end of the 12th round. Again, it's early still, so ADP data will be updated. But the difference between Dak who I think has a top 5 upside, versus Joe Burrow, who another quarterback who doesn't run much but has elite passing yards and elite passing touchdowns, is 9 rounds.
Yep.
8 rounds. Like that. Again, I
huge.
Clearly, obviously prefer Joe Burrow. I have no issue with paying the price for Joe Burrow, but there's a world in which Dak has a Joe Burrow light season and you're getting a gigantic discount.
I think part of the reason this tier is so appealing is because it's sort of the unsexy nature of the group, right? People aren't going into their drafts going, I am targeting Brock Purdy. But yet, well, duh. But my point is that it's not a name that people are going like the superstars, right? But then the next grouping here, most people are not targeting. A lot of people are kind of don't know what to do with Patrick Mahomes, even though there's name recognition. But most people feel like they're going to be judged poorly. I would venture to say, if they're like, I got Brock Purdy, that's my number 1 quarterback in the draft. And yet, this is how we feel about what his potential is because of the fantasy upside.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes' ADP is 53.2 in this same tier. Like I said, Dak Prescott's ADP is 118. So you're talking like a 60-spot difference there if you want to wait.
Yep.
All right, let's talk really quickly about the B tier then, Field. This is where things get a little dicier for me, at least. I don't look at these guys as the same. I get nervous, and I almost think I might draft 2 quarterbacks if I'm going to start targeting people in this B tier.
That's fair, but there is a ton of upside from the players in this tier. The question is, how many of them are likely to do it week in and week out? So let me give you my 5 players that made my tier 3. We start with Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears, who during a season in which it was all bad for the Chicago Bears offense last year, he still had 6 games with 20 or more fantasy points. They now have a better offensive line. Rome Odunze should be better in year 2. They drafted Colston Lovell in 10th overall. And Ben Johnson is here, right? Ben Johnson is inarguably, the best play caller in the NFL for the past 2 seasons. He gives me tremendous confidence in the long-term outlook for Caleb Williams. The question will be, does it happen in a hurry for Caleb or not? But he's a stud. Justin Herbert next, Drake May, Justin Fields, Jared Goff. I'll address them each individually here.
Can I say with Caleb Williams, you mentioned it, and this is obviously I'm a Lions fan. I got to watch a lot of Ben Johnson-led offenses, and I realized these rosters are different, right? So, like, they're not, apples to apples necessarily. But last year, Ben Johnson led this Detroit Lions offense to the best scoring offense in the league, 30.2 points per game. They were the first offense ever in NFL history to have 4 different players with 1,000 yards from scrimmage. It just feels like Ben is a wizard when it comes to finding ways to get guys involved that need to have the ball in their hands.
The dude had his quarterback trip on a play last year.
Stumble bum!
To make the defense think that he had fallen over one of his offensive linemen's feet.
It's so good.
Only Jared Goff can execute that.
And it was great. This isn't just about Caleb Williams. It's about the idea that he can put these other guys in position for Caleb Williams to take advantage of it as well. So I'm with you. I think Ben Johnson is in a great spot to help this Bears offense, and specifically Caleb take another step.
Justin Herbert's an interesting one, and Mike would probably tell, and I'm sure Mike has a pull. Like he hasn't had a bunch of monster season-long finishes. Like I don't know this offhand. I'm not Mike Clay, but I want to say he hasn't had like even a top 5 fantasy finish, maybe even like a top 8 fantasy finish for a full season for Justin Herbert. But we did see something in the second half of last year that was encouraging. He had 5 games of 20 or more fantasy points to Justin Herbert. That number is not great, but all 5 of those came from weeks 8 to 18. That's 10 games. So half of his final 10 games, 20 or more fantasy points. The Chargers have talked about how the reason, like Jim Harbaugh had this great quote that only Jim Harbaugh could do. I'm going to save my impression.
Dang it. I was going to say, bring it out, Field.
I'm still workshopping.
Okay, all right, workshop.
But he's basically Justin's biggest drawback throughout his career has been the people around him. Like, we need to be better for Justin. He's super talented. He is a little bit of a running threat. The receivers, like Ladd McConkey, should be better. They briefly had Mike Williams back, but shout out to Mike Williams in retirement. They drafted a couple of receivers I like. Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Auburn, formerly of Penn State. Anyways, Herbert's an interesting one. Like, he may be a pass for some people because his career history suggests that the season-long upside is lower than these guys, the devil you do know versus the devil you don't know. But I could see 7 or 8 20-plus fantasy point games this year, no problem for Justin.
100%. You mentioned from week 8 on, that's when he had all those 20-point games. From week 8 on, he was quarterback 6, averaging 19.5 fantasy points field.
Really good. Yep.
You asked at what he did. Rookie season, he was quarterback 10. He still had 332 fantasy points, threw for 4,300 yards and 31 touchdowns as a rookie. Absurd. By the way, his second year, he was QB5, threw for 5,000 yards. His third
he has a
year, he was
top 5
QB9. So he has one top 5 finish, one finish inside the top 9 is what he has.
So that would be, again, a little bit less upside.
But he's thrown for 5,000 yards twice in a season.
Right. So again, the conceit for me is who has a chance to be that top finishing quarterback or even crack the top 5. So next up would be Drake May, who's very much an unknown in the sense that he didn't start the full season last year for the Patriots, didn't have a bunch of monster fantasy games, but the traits are really intriguing for Drake May. He averaged 7.8 yards per rush. That's a ridiculous number. That's best in the NFL type number. The Patriots did not, and this is a stat that blows your mind, did not allow Drake May to have one designed run until week 16 of last year.
I remember,
This is having the Ferrari and using it for nothing, leaving it in the garage, right? You put the Ferrari in the garage. It was coaching malpractice of the highest order. Patriots obviously made a huge wholesale change at coaching this offseason. Drake May's got better receivers around him. He's a premier athlete. Josh McDaniels is an upgraded offensive coordinator. There's some upside here to me.
Do you feel like the addition, so we know that they added Stephon Diggs, right? We know he's a veteran, someone that can come in and be, the number 1 wide receiver there. They added Kyle Williams in the draft. How do you feel about him? Because I know that he just needs guys to be able to get the ball to.
Yeah, the Patriots were the least explosive team in the NFL last year. Yep. By if you use 20+ yard plays, they finished dead last in that category last year. They have every yard the Patriots gained last year was earned and grinded out, right?
Fight for it.
The easy button is now available for the Patriots. Kyle Williams, incredibly fast receiver, 4.42 coming out of Washington State, had a dominant last 6 games of his college career, super explosive. The Patriots just every once in a while, like every team does, but especially when you finish dead last in this category a year ago, need a player that sometimes the play that you dial up to get 12 yards goes for 52 yards.
Yeah.
And they, I think, accomplished that not just with Kyle Williams, but also Travion Henderson. Fascinating player we'll discuss in the running back tiers tomorrow.
Yes, we will. All right, who else you got here?
Justin Fields, Justin Fields is more known, obviously, than Caleb Williams and Drake May. The thing with Justin is I think of him as a pocket player, right? Where not playing from the pocket, but there's going to be a pocket of games where Justin Fields completely destroys. Yep. He had that stretch 2 years ago with the Bears where he was the highest scoring player in fantasy for a month. We saw him last year in 6 starts, 2 starts with 20 or more fantasy points. So he's not this every single week guarantee. He's a great running quarterback, though. Elite running quarterback. Great athlete. He had 5 rushing touchdowns and 6 starts last season, did Justin Fields. Questions, I think, are fair about how prolific of a passer he can be. But there's going to be, I think, by the end of the season, if he starts 17 games, he'll rank probably borderline top 10 in 20-plus fantasy point games. The floor is just lower for Justin because he's not the same level passer as a lot of the guys ahead of him.
Yeah, that elite rushing upside can help carry some of the volatility in his passing game, right? But there are games where he's not going to have that elite rushing upside. That's not just going to happen for 17 games in a row. So he has never topped 2,600 passing yards or 17 touchdowns. I just want to see him get to 20 touchdowns this year. I want to see him be able to break that, and I feel like we can do this with Garrett Wilson as his wide receiver.
Yeah, Mike does not project him for 20.
He does not.
For 17.
What does Mike know? Here's the thing. I think we could get rushing touchdowns out of Justin Fields as well. And I think that might be where he holds, some surprise value. He's the gift that you don't really know when you're unboxing it, what exactly you're going to get, because from his physical traits and what we've seen from his athleticism that he has the potential to really be that dual threat for you.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen him be able to consistently deliver from the position. And to be fair to him, if you look at his early career, some of it was the circumstances he was in. We talk about these guys when they get drafted, and if they're not in a great setting that helps prop them up, or you try to put the square peg in a round hole, are they in a system that fits for them?
Yep.
I would think that we haven't really unlocked what Justin Fields' potential can be, and I hope that the Jets are able to do it.
I want you to take this, Daniel. Just Jared Goff, this is probably higher than I would guess where Mike is. But, assuming the offense treads
similar-ish
to water, I don't know, man. You guys are as good a bet to score 35 points a game as anybody.
Jared Goff's last 3 seasons, he finishes QB 10, QB 7, and QB 6. In spite of the fact he doesn't run the football. Did Jared Goff have more passing touchdowns or rush attempts last year, do you think?
Well, definitely more passing touchdowns than rush attempts. How about rush yards?
He had 37 passing touchdowns and 35 rush attempts.
I'm surprised. I honestly would not be. I would guess that of those 35 rushing attempps, 25 or more are kneel downs.
I would probably think that's fair. I think that's fair.
That counts as a rushing touchdown.
Yes.
A rushing attempt.
Yeah. He only had, I think, 50-some rushing yards. He's literally not going to make something happen.
Correct.
In our Michigan men chat, our buddy Kurt always comes after Mike for being, whenever Jared Goff has a rush for like 4 yards, he's like, look at the wheels on that guy. Mike Clay doesn't know what he's talking about.
The problem is just with Jared, as we know, that the bad weeks are he's just more vulnerable, because if he goes for a week in which, he throws for, and it's possible with the rushing attack that he throws for 208 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yep.
It's going to be a 12 fantasy point game because he's going to rush for nothing.
7 games with at least 20 fantasy points, but 6 games under 12.
That's the problem, right?
That's the hard part. You need a sports, if I had a sports almanac from like 1950 to 2000, let's say it's Back to the Future, you just draft both Justin Fields and Jared Goff, and you just play the right matchups. If only it worked that easily, right?
That's not how fantasy football works. Breaking news, if not.
We could guarantee the script.
Intriguing tier here. I think some upside guys. Just quickly, I'll ask both of you. Like, snapshot: Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Drake May, Justin Fields, Jared Goff. Is there one guy in there that you're just like, the nuclear potential is really good? Like, totally takes off and skies to the moon.
I just don't know that I have the confidence in which one it's going to be that I see this season. But the ones I just mentioned when I thought about Justin Fields, but I do think it's Caleb Williams. Yeah. My concern is if Caleb Williams starts overthinking it. I get a little concerned about some of the targets that we've heard about, 70% pass completion. I don't want him thinking about, am I way off that number because I'm having a crazy day? We all know what he did at USC when he basically had to be the hero. And we know that he's trying to now change his stripes in the NFL. We know he has the athletic talent to do it. But during that adaptation, there can be and there will be growing pains.
Sure.
It worries me. Like, he is a cerebral guy, very cerebral. And does he overthink it in certain situations? That ends up hurting him because the athlete in him, we know what he can do. So I hope all of those things merge together in a way that allows him to put on display the talent that I believe he has.
I would, for what it's worth, I would say Caleb Williams 1 and then Justin Herbert 2. I think part of it for me with Caleb Williams, other than all the stuff we've talked about, I don't want to belabor it again.
Yeah.
But he plays in the best division in football. If I said to you that Caleb Williams was playing behind in a decent number of games, at least in the NFC North, he's going to have at least 6 games in which he's going to be playing against 3 really unbelievable teams in which they may have to throw the ball a ton to be able to keep up.
Yeah.
I don't care what it looks like. This is one of those things where, like, he can maybe not look like a good quarterback. We watch Blake Bortles do this thing over and over. If he's down and just needs to throw the football, he has a plethora of weapons this year to be able to get the football to. So I think Caleb Williams is the one that feels like if one of them were just to the moon, he's the guy I think has the best chance to do that.
I think there's a chance.
There's some volatility there too, though, for sure.
Caleb and Drake are the two. And maybe it's because when you're young and you haven't had as many chances to fail or just be okay, we think there is more opportunity to be great. Let's go to tier 4, though, right?
Last question.
Yeah.
Am I putting too much stock in Justin Herbert getting a guy like Trey Harris? Because I like Trey Harris as a big
I like
X
Trey
for
Harris, too. I just like Justin Herbert the most, right?
Okay.
If you're asking who's the best quarterback out of these 5, with due respect, Jared Goff, I think it's Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
He's, and he has fantasy friendlier elements than Jared Goff does. Specifically, his legs are
correct.
They're not a designed weappen all the time, and Omarion Hampton's going to feast.
Well, we did see him get a little crazy late last year, and he was using his legs a lot. And remember, everybody was talking like, "Oh, look at Justin Herbert running." And people forget he's a great athlete, but he also has had a number of lower extremity injuries that have capped what his ability could be with his legs.
Yep. Tier 4 for me is interesting because I think all of these guys could make me look dumb for having them ranked too low. But there are some mitigating factors, and there's also a chance that each of these guys is not good enough to be a starter in a 10 or 12 team league.
Sure.
First player for me in tier 4 is J.J. McCarthy. you could make a case for him to be in tier 3. We've literally never seen him throw a pass in an NFL regular season game. That's why he's
in tier 4 for me and not tier 3.
Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, Cam Ward, and Bryce Young. So I'm just going to go through these in the order in which I just read them. So Trevor Lawrence finished 9 games last year. He finished 9. He had under because he ended up getting hurt and, of course, missed the rest of the season.
Correct.
In the 10th game. He had under 200 yards in 5 of those 9 games. And he only had 26 rushes in 9 games. So he's not really a runner, and he didn't throw a bunch. He didn't throw nearly prolifically. Is that right? Whatever.
Yeah, that sounds. I mean, is that because his pass catchers also were banged up and he was just playing with the depleted offense?
Now here's the confidence that I have in Trevor Lawrence. The scheme should be better.
Yep.
Head coach, as we know, Liam Cohen is unafraid to be very, very aggressive, and Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter when he's on the field is pretty freaking fun. And Diami Brown, who they added, I think they have a lot of confidence in. Would not overlook that signing there. So Trevor's got a pathway to some upside, but there's some downside here too. CJ Stroud, no idea. I'm just going to throw my hands up in the air. He had how many games last year with 20 or more fantasy points?
Oh, don't do this to me.
I know. Whatever it was lower than what I anticipated. Because I thought there was going to be a rise in the second year, and he was going to put everything, all the naysayers,
I'll say
to
5.
shame.
He had 1. 1 game with 20 or more fantasy points.
I'm not totally surprised.
I mean, but if you had told me that going into last year, I'm like, oh my God.
Shocked from what we anticipated. Not surprised to hear you say there was only 1.
His pass catchers are better this year.
They are.
Added Christian Kirk, added Jayden Higgins.
Maybe. It depends on how you look at it. Like, because the beginning of last season, the trio of Nico Collins plus Stephon Diggs plus Tank Dell was elite. And he wasn't performing. Now, each of those guys got hurt, oftentimes early. Or in the case of each of them, it was relatively early, I should say.
And then they were out down 2 of them for the rest of the season.
So I don't know what to make of the player.
Is that offensive line better this year, you think?
I don't think so. I think it's at least different, but different,
but not
don't confuse
better.
activity with achievement, right?
Correct.
So I don't know what to make of him.
I heard that. I like that.
That's John Wooden way back in the day. Jordan Love, 3 games with 20-plus fantasy points. Now, he has shown something. He 2 years ago was a capable fantasy football quarterback, so this one could look way too low. Another player where I think the coach desires for him to play within the pocket. Like, that would be the desire for how Matt LaFleur's offense operates.
I wonder, what if he had not hurt his knee at the very beginning of the season?
Yeah, that was in Brazil, right? Week 1.
It was in Brazil, week 1, and I think that changed. I mean, an MCL sprain, if you've never had, even though he came back decently quickly, that feeling when you're trying to plant and throw and the lack of confidence and worry about taking hits again, it changed the way he played. Like, I don't think as we recap his season, people may forget that he had that injury early on. I think it changed how he played, and I think it impacted why we're thinking the way we are. I think you could see a different version of Jordan Love.
Yep. So this underscores the point that there's good quarterback depth this year.
You said he had a really good season 2 years ago. He was quarterback 5 that year.
Yeah, it's great.
When that happened, he had, I think, over 230 or 250 rushing yards. Are you worried that if they want him to play in the pocket, that limits, obviously, the ceiling that we're talking about?
I think the offense has so many players that they are designing. Like, think about how many Jaden Reed, just like
esque players. Yeah. Dude.
Like push passes, right? And then obviously in the goal line, it's going to be the Josh Jacobs show. Of
course.
He was so good last year, and it's going to be Josh Jacobs. Like, Jordan Love may have a quarterback rushing, like a quarterback sneak for a touchdown this year, but I'd be surprised if it was any more than that. Cam Ward is next up. This is a magical talent. This guy was #1 pick in the draft. He has some really legit skills.
Where did he go to school?
He went to the U, the Incarnate Word, and also Washington State, but he obviously had a remarkable final season.
We were just talking about his last year.
Yeah. The important
That's
year,
the only
right?
one Stephania gets. That's right. Yeah.
Yes. So Cam, very good athlete. What we haven't seen, or what we didn't see, at Miami was Cam tapped into with his legs. It's a designed runner very much.
Mm-hmm.
I remind people this oftentimes, though, is if you're Miami and you're putting up 40 points a game with Cam Ward largely just dropping back, why would you bother running him? It makes him vulnerable to injury, and you're already scoring 40 points a game. There's more to tap into, but it's not a great situation he's walking into in Tennessee. The skill players not named Calvin Ridley are very, very young, especially at wide receiver. Tony Pollard had a good year last year. Magical talent, but, we saw it with Caleb Williams and Drake May. last year. Just because you're super talented doesn't always mean that like boom games are a guarantee early.
You know what's interesting? I can't recall a number 1 overall player being less hyped than Cam Ward. It's a really weird year. But I actually think that might work in his favor. Yeah. Because what do we see with rookie quarterbacks all the time, but all this pressure to perform up to these expectations? And Cam Ward feels to me like he's forgotten about. Maybe because not a lot of people are talking about the Titans. He goes into an offense where people are like, yeah, Cam Ward. But even after at the draft, it was like, okay, number 1 pick. It was sort of this foregone conclusion. I know.
The perfect thing happened. Well, I guess the imperfect thing happened. With the first pick, Titans select Cam Ward. Bam, Adam Schefter tweet. The Jaguars have traded up to pick number 2, right? So and Schefter's doing his job. That it's a huge story.
I don't think.
Totally. I agree.
As far as number 1 picks go, I can't recall somebody who got less attention before, during, or after the draft. So I actually think that, hey, maybe this works in his favor. And some of the things that we didn't get to see at Miami, like his running talent, maybe that's going to be on display. And maybe he's going to surprise us a little bit.
I would agree. There is more upside. It may just take a year or 2.
Yeah.
He's the only guy that I don't have in the same tier as you. I have him in that next tier just because the offense is tough. And as a rookie, having not seen it, I would rather go a different direction. But
my tiers matter less as we get further.
As you get farther away. That's fair.
Bryce Young is also in this tier for me. It was much improved down the stretch last year. The question is, as much like he had 15 touchdowns and 9 picks last year, albeit in a weird season. He played better. He has some rushing ability for sure. Not elite, but just I have confidence that the trajectory of this organization and this offense is strong, so I think he deserves some mention. And then beyond that is my next tier, which is tier 5. And these are actually incongruent a little bit with some of my rankings because these guys probably have a better shot at finishing as like somewhere between quarterback 12 and 15 than like Cam Ward or Bryce Young, but they have a lower chance of finishing as like a top 5 player at the position because in the case of many of these guys, they're pocket passers who don't really use their legs at all, right? So tier 5 for me includes the likes of Matthew Stafford, Geno Smith, Tua Tagovailoa, Michael Penix Jr. could be in there as well. So, again, I like all of these players in real life as players. They're going to have some solid games for sure. Like Matthew Stafford's going to have a vintage 300-yard, 3-touchdown, no interception performance along the way. But Stafford might run for 13 yards all season.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's
honestly. I mean, if
he's got a bad back to start.
Yeah, like he might not rush for 13 yards for what it's worth.
He's starting to get rid of the ball, and he's not looking for any.
Tua's probably the one that deserves a bit more shine than those two because he's younger and we've seen a lot of upside. But Tua, going back to like the second half of 2023, the problem with Tua is that when he's not elite, he's just like completely unplayable.
Unstartable.
Right? It's like, it's not, and in the case of some of those guys that are further up ahead, like even the bad version of like Kyler, not that Kyler's perfect, but he was the first guy that I chose here. So it's like, yeah, Kyler dudded today. He only got you 14.5. Whereas like a Tua dud can be like 8 points, right? Again, because he's in that same category. I think Tua's a very, very, very good quarterback. For fantasy, we're looking for players that have a lot of rushing upside.
Right.
And with the Dolphins offense focusing more on running the football and being physical at the point of attack, the idea of just like bombs away left and right, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, probably a little less prevalent this year. Think about how much of their offense last season was just dump the ball off to Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane.
Right.
Great for those guys in PPR scoring. Not
It
as
would be great for
Tua's
the Dolphins
upside.
if they could put both together and actually have a functional offense that was consistent.
I think it's like one sort of begets the second, right? Like if you can run the football effectively, what happens is teams say, okay, we can't just like stay way back and prevent the big passes because they now are running for, 5 yards of play. But once you start running for like 5 or 6 yards of play, teams start to move too many resources to the box. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, like, it's 1st and 10 and they're expecting a run. And the next thing you know, it's play action and it's Tyreek Hill, giving his little signature peace sign on
75 yards downfield. Right? Yep.
So any names that I didn't mention that you guys are like, I can't believe that guy didn't come up.
I'm going to call you out. more than I agree with this being a name that was not mentioned. But yesterday on the show, you said we shouldn't be dismissing Sam Darnold after dropping 300 in fantasy points and finishing his QB9, and he doesn't make either one of our lists. He's not even ranked by any of us here at ESPN.
You guys hate Sam
and
Darnold?
Doesn't make the tier list. Is this one of those things where you're like, the real life Sam Darnold is just going to be better than what the fantasy version is going to be?
I think that's fair too. Yeah, and
it's also, don't you feel like it's just an offense that you really don't know what it's going to look like?
Yes, I have no idea.
I think I know what it wants to look like. I think it wants to look like what the Saints were doing early last season when Clint Kubiak was there. The discounts for Sam Darnold are, let's start. Yeah, I think they would like to run the football a lot. He goes from throwing passes to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to a very good wide receiver room, Jake Bobo and Jackson Smith and Jake Bobo.
I love it. I love it.
And Cooper Kupp. But who you taking?
Yeah.
Who you taking, right? On top of that,
pretty sure the Vikings played with the lead for almost every minute of the 2024 season.
Kind of a magical year last year, right? There was some magic involved. So I do like Sam much more in a 2-quarterback league than a single quarterback.
Sure. When you're looking at these tiers, Field, obviously S tier, A tier, B tier, these guys are starters for us.
Yeah. A tier is my favorite value tier.
What's C tier? When you look at this, the CJ Stroud, the Trevor Lawrence, the Jordan Love, is that 16-team league starters? Is that 2 quarterback, the second quarterback
I think
starter?
It's like 14 to 16-team league starters. What those guys all are, truthfully, is they're players that, like, if you get them right, it sucks because it means they had down years again.
Yep.
And it probably has a trickle-down effect to their pass catchers. If you get them wrong, it also sucks because you got them wrong.
Because someone else is playing that guy against you and they're scoring 22 points a week.
Again, what we're doing here is we're trying to make calculated swings on players that we think have higher upside than others. I believe that, and I'm just picking a name from tier 3 and tier 4, that on a weekly basis, Jared Goff has a higher upside than CJ Stroud does. Like, if you ask me who has a chance to get to 20 in a given week, Jared Goff in this offense, even with a new play caller, even with
how run heavy they
less
are,
running than CJ Stroud, even with like the potential for natural regression, it's just hard to score 33 points a game every year, has a better chance of getting there than CJ Stroud.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. That's one of the hard part for me with Jared Goff is all my Lions fandom is like when he has duds, he can dud real hard, and that's the tough part.
The interesting thing to me is that I don't think there's a ton of disagreement with where everybody's ranked everyone, and just in the fantasy community in general. I think this is probably about how people feel. Like, I don't think there's going to be, I'll be surprised if there's a lot in here that's very polarizing. So the problem is then when you go into your draft, it becomes much more about strategy.
Yeah.
Because if you really want, we all pretty much agree who are the elite and where you're going to have to invest to get them. But a lot of people who are like, well, I'm going to wait a little bit on quarterback, I'm going to try and target these tier 2. You have to know where people are feeling about their draft, because you could get stuck if there starts to be a quarterback run and you're in this tier 2. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I'm down in tier 3. I did not want to end up there with my starting quarterback.
This is what brings me to, we say this every single year. This is why it's important to mock draft, to understand where people are coming off the board, to be able to look at ADP with where you're drafting. Are you able to grab a guy and wait? Are you able to wait and see, like, he's going to come back to me in this round? Or is it like, if I want him, I've got to take him here because there's a high likelihood he doesn't make it?
I know in our mock draft project, I miscalculated on Joe Burrow probably the most often. I would be like, okay, I know that he's not going to go as high as the other 4, and if I wait till about this
spot, can I wait and get him
and
here?
Then he would get picked up. And I think that's your point about mock drafting is really good, because you have to watch how that changes. More and more news will come out of training camp. More and more chatter will happen, and there will be volatility in where those players are drafted.
Quickly, the quarterback rooms we did not discuss today. We mentioned Sam Darnold, Pittsburgh Steelers with Aaron Rodgers, the New York Giants with Russell Wilson to start, but probably not Russell Wilson to finish.
Yep.
The Indianapolis Colts, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson.
New Orleans Saints.
With Tyler Shuck.
Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, that's part of the problem, right?
And there's one more that I am forgetting off the top of my head. Cleveland Browns, of course. Cleveland Browns. Who knows? So, yes.
Did we talk about Raiders?
Geno Smith.
Okay.
Geno Smith.
I missed that. We just kind of.
Yep. Yeah. Running back tiers tomorrow. Running back tiers are going to be, I would say, less
I think they'll be more different,
but definitely different too.
Yeah.
Less scientific. It's hard to hard to know when to draw the line from one tier to the next at running back.
Sorry, I'll miss that one.
That's
okay.
A
lot of thoughts on Christian McCaffrey.
And actually, I'm going to call an audible here live while we're doing this. We did quarterbacks today. We're going to do wide receivers tomorrow. The pass catchers of these quarterbacks that we're talking about. So we'll dive into the wide receiver tiers tomorrow. Going to be a ton of fun, as it always is. Make sure if you did not see our mock draft episode yesterday, you want to see where we decided to take some players, go check that out.
You know what? Join the chat and tell us
Absolutely.
when you
Jump in the YouTube chat. We love being able to hear.
We heard a lot yesterday. The draft was, provoked some responses.
Yes,
we love that. That's what this is all about.
That's what it's all about. Stephania, we will not see you the rest of the week. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to argue with Field by myself.
I know. Well, some of us have to go do workout in the field.
Oh, yeah?
No pun intended.
There you go. Hey! All right, that's going to do it for us. Don't forget to love each other, be kind to yourself, and we'll see you guys here tomorrow.